So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this lunch seminar arranged by the Hjalmarson Foundation, the Democracy Foundation linked to the Moderate Party. And great to see so many people, both for me, familiar faces and quite a lot of new faces. And not least, a warm welcome to our guests from Venezuela. And my name is Christian Holm. I'm a member of the Committee on Foreign Affairs in the Swedish Parliament, but also board member of the Hjalmarson Foundation. And one of our partner parties is Proyecto Venezuela, and I would like to welcome the founder of the Proyecto Venezuela, the former party leader, former governor, 2 terms, I think, in Carabobo in Venezuela, and also former presidential candidate of Venezuela, Mr. Henrique Salas Römer. So please, Don Henrique, you are very welcome. And we will have a discussion. Henrique will have a presentation about Venezuelan situation, and then we will have questions and answers. As you see, we didn't start exactly on time, so we will continue to 1:15. If someone really have to go because of other meetings at 1, as it's announced that, we won't see you as rude in that case, but you are more than welcome to stay at least to 1:15. So, Don Henrique, welcome. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you, all of you, especially the Jarl Hjalmarson Foundation. Eva, where are you? You there? Thank you for inviting us. Mr. Ambassador from Austria was here as well, and all of you that have come to hear about a country that's going through a very difficult situation. This morning I wasn't able to have breakfast because they had asked me to write an op-ed for a Swedish newspaper, which had to be written in English, which is not obviously my native language, and then had to be translated to Swedish. So I will try to follow the lines of that op-ed, and kindly ask that you yourselves ask any questions that may come up as you hear what I have to say. I have come with a delegation of very distinguished Venezuelans related to our party, but also on their own, specialized in different areas. So I'd like to present them briefly to you, so that if any question should be addressed to any of them, they could also take questions. Alfredo Romero, on my right, is Director General of the Foro Penal. It's a fight for human rights. Julio Castillo has been twice Vice President of the Chamber of Deputies, now extinct, and also has been mayor. This social worker here, for over 18 years, she has presided all foundations in our state. She's always also helped me along for a little over 50 years. And I look around, where is Elsie? Elsie is the president of a private university. Deyalitza, she's a member of the National Assembly. Nady Rosal is a member of the legislature. Julio Rivas is a young fellow who was trained in Kosovo and has been active in trying to help us get go into the right track. Colonel Carlos Mendez is a retired colonel who has held important positions both in security and health. Isidro Alonso is a political philosopher. And am I missing anyone? Fabio Solano is an assistant to the assistant president of IDU for Latin America, and he's been kind enough to accompany us. But let me start by saying that Venezuela is on the edge of a cliff. I'm not exaggerating. Very few people would bet on the possibility of Maduro or his government's survival at this particular moment. But he decided to take the offensive last week, and on Saturday, the 9th, he asked the people to loot a very large store specializing in kitchen equipment, TV sets and electronics. And obviously his people readily complied and set fire to the place. And he has been calling on now for the militia to go out, and because they have 150,000 man militia, armed militia, to go out and identify stores that are overpricing their products and thus robbing the consumer and giving away anything that's overpriced. We couldn't help but remember that the night between the 9th and 10th of November of 1938 was Kristallnacht, when Hitler began his persecution of the German Jewish population. And since Mr. Maduro is very fond of figures of dates, maybe he got his inspiration from Kristallnacht. In fact, it was he's a Stalinist, and it was he who decided when Chavez died. We know that Chavez was dead or mentally dead since December. But it was announced exactly on the day that Stalin died. So, since he guides himself by old historic dates, perhaps he was inspired by that. But what's bringing all this into focus is the fact that we have municipal elections in 3 weeks. And should he lose, or his party lose, most municipalities, it would confirm in a way that he won by fraud in his presidential election, something we're absolutely sure that happened, because we have an electronic two-way system of counting the votes in our state. We have scientifically, not we, but independent scientific organizations have established that we have to win by over 20% of the vote in order to win. And we all know when we're going to win or we're going to lose, depending on whether it's a landslide or it's a closer election. And being so important for so many people that this regimen, this government stay on, for reasons that I will try to explain a little along the way, it was obvious that they were going to do anything they could to win that election. But now it's more difficult. Venezuela is in a deep, very deep recession. Oil reserves, oil monetary reserves have been depleted. We only have 15 days of operational monetary reserves, despite the fact that we have had oil at $100 level for quite a long time. The previous president had that oil governed with oil prices at $8, and he has had for the last few years $100. But he's given it away. Chavez gave it away in their petroleum policy to get international allies. They pilfered, they corrupted much of the armed force hierarchy, much of society, so as to make way to democratically take over the whole government. So it may surprise you that a country like Venezuela has a lot of agriculture and animal husbandry, is now importing 85% of its food, and doesn't have enough money or international credit to import what we need to eat. Where we don't have flour. Often we don't get milk. Sometimes we can't find toilet paper. It's long lines. It would surprise you also to know that Venezuela is practically broke. Not only because of international research, but because it's lost all its international credit. Only the Chinese, and in fact the last time they denied it, but they have advanced large sums in exchange for the commitment to supply oil for a number of years, which is in a way giving them our future. One of the figures that surprised most people is the fact that Venezuela has the largest murder rate in the world. As Alfredo Romero was reminding us, we have lost over 200,000 people in the last 14 years, killed, innocent people killed on the streets or in their homes. Only last year we lost 21,000, over 21,000 people. More than all wars going on around the world in just one country. And much of this has been part of an express policy oriented to dominate us through the stomach, dominate us by letting the delinquency foster. The judicial system is used to prosecute political people, but not criminals. Our jails are overcrowded and run with war arms by prisoners, not by the National Guard, who's outside and that doesn't have enough firepower against the prisoners inside. The police equipment is curtailed, but the militia is fully armed. I think, Colonel, there was 250 Kalashnikovs that were sent around. Hubo 250,000 fusiles Kalashnikov, ¿no?
Algo más, pero lo que repartieron fueron los fusiles automáticos livianos, que son 250,000.
Okay, there was more Kalashnikovs brought in, but the light fusiles is in English? Pero los livianos, ¿cómo se dice fusiles livianos? Well, in any case, there are war equipment, light war equipment, in the hands of 250,000 people, but we don't know who they are. They have created a militia. It's surprising for those who know something of history of our country that Venezuela, having been for several decades a full-fledged democracy with transparent elections, division of powers, the rule of law, is now a one-man show, one-party establishment controlling everything. And that is, we have been progressively militarized as the regular military forces have been ideologized or corrupted and have been penetrated also by Cuban, Belarusian, and Iranian officers who operate within our armed forces. The Cubans have a full floor in our Defense Department. It would surprise you also that a country like Venezuela, who has received refugees from all over the world over history, millions of history, mainly from Colombia, but many after the Second World War, many from the Arab world even during the Ottoman Empire. And we have received, before some European countries joined the European Union, many impoverished Europeans came and helped us in the 1950s and 1960s. We have also been host to those persecuted in different Latin American dictatorships, from Argentina, from Chile, from Peru, so on and so forth, that now we are the home of the FARC. That's the Colombian guerrilla movement. We are the home of the Irish rebels that have been ousted of Ireland. We have the home of the ETA, the Spanish ETA. We're home for the Hezbollah. We have silent cells all over the country. Venezuela had been relatively free of drugs, and now we are exporting over 250 tons of cocaine every year. Most of it brought in from Colombia and other countries, but flown out from Venezuela. It will surprise you also, finally, that Venezuela, being the cradle of the world of independence, Bolivar was from Venezuela. The leadership from much of the wars of independence came from Venezuela. But we have forsaken our sovereignty to a little island run by a canny manipulator. All identification processes in the hands of Cubans. Our passports, information, our notaries are run by Cubans. And not only that, we cannot gain access to that information except with permission from the company that the Cubans formed for that position. So the Maduro government is going down, obviously, in the polls quickly. And that's why he resorts to this Kristallnacht type strategy, trying to change his face, to reposition himself and cast himself not as a failed successor of Hugo Chavez, but as a born-again Robin Hood, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. And as I was reflecting on this op-ed, I said, well, but once the elections are over, whatever the results, and they may win quite a few municipalities because of their electronic capabilities, the cliff will be there, will still be there, very near. And we must remember that history records that not only that the 9th of November was not only the day 75 years ago when the persecution of the Jews started, but it was also the day in 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell. We were hoping that will be the case. So being a Venezuelan, so we have come to tell our story and get you involved in something that is affecting not only Venezuela but the whole continent. Cuba was the last foothold of the Spanish Empire in America, and Fidel Castro, a son of a Spaniard, has tried to continue his imperial. Elizabeth Burgos, whom I met in Paris a few years, 2 or 3 years ago, she was the wife of Regis Debray, who went up the Bolivian mountains with Che Guevara. They're separated, but she's a very respected intellectual woman. She says that Cubans have in their ADN, or DNA, the imperialist mentality. In any way, they started with the arm strategy. They passed on to the strategy they're trying to hold right now, strategy of winning governments by democratic means and dismantling democracy from inside. But now they're moving to a third stage, which is the cybernetic invasion. Just as they have all the information on Venezuela, they have all the information. They have done the same thing with Bolivia, now Argentina. People from our country trained in Cuba are being spread out all over the Caribbean and in different countries to teach and spread the revolution. So we are facing something that is not only Venezuelan, but it's continental, and being continental, it's important not only to the Americas, but to all the world as well. So we thank once again, the Jarl Hjalmarson Foundation and yourselves for giving us this opportunity to come here and tell a story. Because as one writer wrote many years ago in an American magazine, a stuck nail in our foot hurts more than 200,000 dead in Biafra. That was when the hunger. If you don't touch, if you don't see, the figures don't mean anything. And perhaps if you, through us, you're able to touch the Venezuelan reality right now, maybe you will be able to influence not only Sweden, but whoever can help us create a conscience. People become conscious that we are confronting a real danger in a new world with new realities, with new challenges, and that Venezuela is an experimental scenario for things that may happen tomorrow to other countries. Thank you, and I'll be very happy to take your questions.